Hello, my magical, mystical friends. Welcome to this live. I am so excited to be doing this live. It's going to be amazing because today, first of all, I don't often get to do lives, so it's always really fun when I get to sit here with you all. But also, today, I have a wonderful guest who will be joining shortly on the live. If you have listened to the Oracle Parlor podcast, or perhaps you've seen the live that I did with Rebekah the Ghost Guide, we're going to be answering your questions that you have submitted to the both of us. Some of them are kind of like general topics, and then other ones are going to be more specific questions that we've gotten. So, with all that being said, we'll get started in just a moment here. I will go ahead and ask Rebekah to join.
Hi, welcome. Yay, everybody's popping in. Hello. Hey, Rebekah.
Hello. That was so fast. I was expecting to be in limbo for at least a few minutes.
I love when the internet is yes, on point.
I was ready. I was literally going through your stories. I was like, okay, something to do. Oh, hey, there's me. Cool, great.
Well, thank you so much for doing this live with me. I'm so excited we could get together again.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Literally, I've had a blissfully slow day today, and I've just been looking forward to this live all day. So nice. I am very excited.
Yay! Awesome. And we got a lot of really good topics and questions. And so I think we'll just go through them, and whatever we end up kind of sticking on, if it takes more time, and, if we don't get to everybody's questions, in case somebody did drop a question here, maybe we'll save them for another time. If we run out of time this time.
We'll have to go live again.
Oh, yeah. Oh no!
What do we do?
Oh yes, we're both
both
today. I love it.
I love when that happens. Sometimes it happens if I'm going live with somebody, which happened a few times for the 13 days to giveaways, but it's also happened for some consultations as well. And I'm always just like, we're already in sync. I love this.
We're vibing. I love it. Awesome. So, shall we jump right into it?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, perfect. So I have them saved here on my other device. So the first, I think, big couple of topics that we have, one of them is red flags in spiritual practice. And for anybody who wasn't aware, this is so synchronistic and so perfectly timed, because at the beginning of last month, I actually just dropped a podcast episode about red flags and green flags specifically for practitioners. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, Rebekah, on what your thoughts are on this topic.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, it's a topic that I think will need to be reoccurring. Just because we have new waves of people coming into spirituality all the time, literally every day. And we're all just out here trying to figure out how best to be alive. And then applying that into a larger context as well. I mean, it's so easy for anybody to just go on a video and just be like, this is what I think. And there are pros to that, absolutely. I mean, I can speak from my personal experience. It was really cool for me to put some things out there and be like, I don't know, this is what I think. And people are like, whoa, that resonates with me. But certainly you can have the opposite of that, which is people putting stuff out there and then people being like, so I can fix my mental health problems if I just sell my soul to the nearest spirit who says they can fix it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wish I wasn't exaggerating on that. And I'll point a finger at myself. That is kind of something I did in a past life that I had to deconstruct in this one. We're all just out here,
Yes. Trying our best.
Yeah, it was a very desperate situation. But even so, here we are. And I had to deal with that, oh goodness, 4 lives later. But with other things, I think one of the bigger red flags is lumping everybody together. So to say it is always going to be like this, I saw a video from another creator. Oh, what is her name? She was living in Florida and now she lives in Atlanta. I'm gonna have to look her up because she recently reposted a video where she stitched somebody, and the first person was saying if you cremate somebody and put them in a in an urn, that keeps their soul there forever. And this creator so skillfully broke it down and was like, okay, so what happens if you take the ashes out and they get caught in the wind? Does that mean the soul is everywhere in the wind? Okay, what if the ashes are preserved due to climate and they're still there, thousands of years later, and somebody pulls them out to study them? Does that mean that the body is like, the soul is so trapped in the body? She did it so well. I have to look up her handle. I don't know if you remember back in the 2020 to 2021 days, she was the woman who would like give these really hot takes and then like sip tea, and then she'd go, and we sip.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I know who you're talking about. But I can't remember their name either, but I know.
Jasmine. Yeah, I don't know if her handle is Jasmine's Garden, but I know her website is that. So Jasmine, and I've been loving her hot takes for years.
I love it.
But yeah, applying everything to one singular practice, whether that is channeled or whether that is a religion or something like that, it's going to be different for every person wherever they're at. Culture is different, beliefs are different, gods, deities, etc. They're different.
Yes, this is the exact same core thing that when I talk about red flags, this is my usual like go-to, is the idea of talking in definitives, which is very much the same idea of this is exactly how it's done. I know 100% without a doubt. And you had literally just before we got on this made a video that was very much in line with that, which is this person who is 100% convinced, like without a doubt, it's a demon. And you're like, okay, but it could be something else. That doesn't mean it can't be a demon, but based on the evidence that you have gathered, and I think that very much falls in that same kind of category when it comes to red flags, is when you see people online who share their practice, you have to, really take into consideration their background, where they're coming from, their experiences, and know that that all gets filtered through that. And so if somebody's telling you definitively without a doubt, it's like, yes, for them, in their experience, in their life and their perception, that may be their truth, but that doesn't mean it's the end all be all for everyone. And kind of like what you were talking about with this, like people's cultures influence them, it's the same thing. And this is actually something I talked about with J. Alan Cross on my podcast about what is witchcraft, because like so many people will say, I practice traditional witchcraft. Okay, but like
what culture,
what location? Because like even if we're talking about, let's say like Mexico, because like that's where my ancestry comes from, even the specific areas in Mexico are going to be vastly different in how they practice. And there's also different forms. There's like curanderismo or brujeria. So it's like you can't just lump everything into like what you were talking about, like this box. It's just not, it doesn't work. There is no dichotomous black or white thinking when it comes to spirituality and psychic work. And when we do that, we're really like diminishing and minimizing it and not being as expansive as we could be.
Yeah. Two things with that exactly. So one, it is a red flag to me when a psychic medium does make statements of it is always this, it is always this. The problem with that is so often when that happens, people latch onto it because they're like, an easy explanation. That's what I was looking for.
Yes.
Spirituality, it's as easy as it's not when it comes to explanations. And there's a lot of variety out there. And the thing with the demon, I think a lot of people are worried that because they're afraid that it has to be something bad, otherwise they look bad or they look like they're crazy because they're experiencing something like that. And I'm like, nah, ghosts can be scary. They can absolutely be scary. Like Savannah, Georgia, because of course I'm at this lovely posh bar. It's rebuilt, it's modern. I'm with some friends and I go back to the bathroom, and right before I go in, there is a spirit of a man and he's, from what I remember, he was wearing like this nice tuxedo, and I was just like, well, that's creepy. He's like in the dark of the corner before I'm about to go into the women's bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, what does he do? He levitates off the ground. These are his feet, and
Nope.
he follows me into the bathroom. And he doesn't, fortunately, he doesn't go in the stall with me, but still, it's like
Creepy.
in my mind's eye, I can see his feet underneath the stall door. I hate bathroom ghosts. Like, it's one thing if it's like, there's one story in St. Augustine where like the bathroom used to be somebody's bedroom, so that I understand, and I feel for that spirit. But this was totally different. This guy knew that he was creepy. He knew he wasn't asking for help. He was just levitating and following me in the bathroom, and
That's so gross.
This is when I forget all of who I am. I forget, like, I was like a ghost guide. I forget that I can pack a punch if I need to. I'm just sitting there on the toilet trying to do my thing, and I'm just like, can I leave? Like, I don't know what to do.
Oh my gosh. Bathroom ghosts are gross and like so uncomfortable. I've only had it happen once where I like had walked out of the stall, and I legit, like, it rarely happens this way where it's like not in my mind's eye, but like I literally think out of the corner of my eye I'm physically seeing someone, and they were just standing there staring at me, and I was like washing my hands, and I was like, why is this person like staring me down? And then I went to go shoot them a look like, what's your problem? And then they weren't there, and I was like, oh god.
Also, I see
why in this location.
Yeah, Theron, I see you in the chat. You were with me for both of those experiences. If you remember the name of those places, please put them in the chat. But like, Theron, also thank you, because like, especially in Savannah, it's kind of like the assumption of we're in downtown Savannah, expect anything. But like, I had gone to the bathroom, I came out, like, I don't remember if I said anything. Maybe I did say something immediately. Theron, maybe you had gone first, but I was just like, was there a man?
Oh man.
But yeah, ghosts can be scary. That's totally valid, and they don't have to be demons or higher beings in order to be scary. And either way, we can enact our own willpower to make boundaries, or at least call our guides to remind us that we can make the boundaries on our own without them having to come through a bathroom and bust somebody down. Which was another thing that happened. Oh my goodness, West Palm Beach, the Flagler Mansion. Another example of me forgetting I'm Rebekah, the ghost guide. I'm in the women's bathroom in this like outdoor area where you can go and visit one of the train cars that Flagler used to ride in. So it's like really posh and stuff. I go into the bathroom and I thought somebody physical had followed me in. And then the door just, it went behind me, and I was like, oh, clearly there's not somebody behind me. But then there's like this woman who's like there, like spirit in the corner, just being creepy. I forget everything, and I'm sitting there once again on the toilet, and I'm just like, I can't leave. Like, she's out there. She looks scary in my mind's eye. Like, I'm calling my guides, and I'm like, there's a woman in the bathroom.
I love that you're calling on your guides to be like, could you please ask this creepy lady to leave? I just need to go.
Because I'm doing something private. Please take them away. Oh, Theron said the Flagler Museum bathroom ghost and Savory Society in Savannah. Thank you, Theron.
There you go. So anyone in the area can now go to that bathroom
and have an experience.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, Theron and I, we should have a show where we just go to different bathrooms and get creepy and talk about it.
This is like a thing, apparently.
Oh yeah, a few of you were there.
One.
We are not. Yeah, I see Lisa was in there. Yeah, it was a whole trip. It was a trip and a time. But anyway.
My gosh. Fantastic. Well, speaking of red flags in spiritual practice, I think that kind of leads really well into this next one, which is like, what's the vibe of spiritualists on social media? Which this question can be taken kind of like a lot of places. So, but I'd love to know.
Yeah, this is something that Theron, who, for anybody who don't know, Theron is my partner. And we're both in the same line of business doing spiritual consultations and social media and that sort of thing. And we talk about this almost daily now. And one, I think the market is oversaturated. I think it was the thing that anybody could do, and there's a pro and con in that. And I absolutely am behind that. I'm like, yes, anybody can be like spiritual, anybody can have their own journey, anybody can have an adventure. Everybody should be able to trust their intuition, whatever that means for them. That I am for. Though the oversaturation is because everybody can do it without really any validity behind it or any like nationally recognized training or just any sort of basis. Anybody can blow up and become a spiritualist, and because of that we have so many spiritualists, and for many of them I don't know what or why they believe in what they believe. And for me, when I'm looking to work with somebody, I gotta know their morals. I've gotta know their ethics.
Yes. And Theron also, real quick, perfectly. Anyone can be psychic. Not everyone should be reading others. Yep.
Starts with self.
Yep.
Starts with the availability to read self. And I know that's hard. I know there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I can always read other people, but I can't read me. And then my next question is, why? Why is that? Where is the self-trust in that? Now, okay, there will be exceptions. There are certainly times, I'll point a finger back at myself, I'll point two. Like, there are certainly times where I'm having a mental health thing and I start getting into my head and I have the anxiety about it, and I can do a read, but maybe I'm not doing a read like up and out. Sometimes I do a read that points back to me and it's all under my bias, so I keep getting the same answer. So then I will go to another reader and I'll be like, hey, can I have some outside perspective? But I can admit that about myself, and it's not all the time. Like, I'll do a read for myself every day just as a little practice, just to be like, oh, okay, well, that's what I'm looking at. Cool. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Theron says also, pet peeves, stop changing terms and language due to your lack of understanding. So yes, and yes to everything Rebekah said too, because like it's I am also of the same mind. Anybody can be psychic. Anybody can do what we do. The problem that really boils down to it is like what Theron said, which is like your core ethics. And not everybody should be reading for others. People have this like idea that just because they can do something means that they should be doing it for others. And that's not always the case, you know, like I'll give you, this is a great example. My partner, this is wonderful. We've been married for years. My partner and I literally bonded because my partner saw the same spirit that I was seeing in my grandma's house, that I thought it was just me. And that's how we like instantly like, this is it forever. So my partner has had experiences all their life, and they still do, and they are so wonderful. We confirm each other's experiences all the time, but my partner wants nothing to do with doing this. You don't have to do this work. And so I feel like some people either feel pressured, or they're like, well, this will be easy money, or like, and this is where we get into the questionable ethics, because some people will like, I've legit seen a person online, this was like many years ago when Twitter was still Twitter, where I saw someone who was an astrologer, and one week they were asking people what certain tarot cards meant, like major arcana. And then a couple days later, they were offering tarot readings for $30. And I was like, oh, honey, you just picked up a deck and you're reading for people. You haven't actually like sat with it. You haven't like done the work on yourself. They literally admitted not even days prior that they had never done this before. And here they were turning around and offering it to others. And I'm like, sit with it and work with yourself first. Do that inner like experience and exploration. Take some classes, talk to some people who have the experience, and then work your way into it. But like we often see And I think this is why we're seeing this big spiritualist online boom, is because people just immediately jump in instead of sitting with it.
Yeah. I I this is something I've been looking at a lot, especially in the last year for myself, which is like doing these regular readings, and I call them consultations just because I teach in my readings. I teach people how to apply the reading, but I also teach people how to make the connections on their own. And calling them consultations, I had never seen that when I started doing that. But I had also never been to a reading where I learned something. So I would learn something about me, and then I'd be like, cool, now what? Like, you were talking to so and so, how do I talk to so and so? Like, there was like this big disconnect. But anyway, for me, I look at the psychics who have been doing readings for, before TikTok, like 10 or so years, maybe more. And I'm just like, what if consultation styles, the way that they have been for me, was a
Mm-hmm.
chapter in my life so that I could understand how to learn?
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started offering mediumship in my consultations, because I also did a version before that, which is now my quick chats, where it was just a talk sesh. People could come to me, they could pay a low rate, and they could, it was like empathetic listening, essentially, but for ghosts.
Yeah.
So, and I started doing a little bit of mediumship in that, which is how I practiced. And then when I actually opened up my books, I kept the rate very low, and I was honest with people. I said, hey, I'm learning. The rate is low because I have to get
Yes.
something,
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
But now I'm at a place where, like, I have so much more passion with teaching, and I want people to feel like they're living their own adventurous life, and that intuition is a part of that. And so where I see myself headed, which I don't have all the answers for, and I think I'm in a place in my life where I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to sit in this for a
Mm-hmm.
little while, as I'm pointing at me in my camera right now. So it's like I think I'm supposed to sit in the creative phase for a bit longer
Mm-hmm.
and figure out, like, what does all of this mean for me? How do
Yes.
I move forward? How do I continue to learn? Because I never want to get in a spot where I feel like I know it all. I don't think that's safe. I don't think
No.
that's healthy. That's
Yes.
the red flag. That is
Yeah,
a red
that's
flag.
going back to red flags. That's a huge one. Yes. No, we're forever students. We should always be learning no matter what we are doing in life. This applies to everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if we've hit a mastery level to the point that, let's say, you're like an accredited college professor, you should still see yourself as a student. You
Mm-hmm.
should still see yourself as like, well, I have a lot of knowledge in this area, but I'm still learning in a lot of other areas. And I love what you said, because that's actually how I started giving readings too, was when, like, I've been giving myself tarot readings ever since I was a kid, but when it came to reading for others, that was never something I was like fully comfortable with when I first started. And so what I started to do was, at the time I worked at the animation industry. And so I would tell people who knew that I was a tarot reader, like, oh, well, I'm starting to read for people outside of my bubble, my family and friends. So if you would like a reading, buy me lunch and I'll give you a reading during lunch. And so that's what we would do. We would just do an exchange, because it's that energetic exchange of, well, there should still be something exchanged. But when you're starting out, it's like letting them know, this is something I'm learning. I'm not quite comfortable. Even pet communication, that's how it started for me too, where I noticed I was having experiences on my own, and then spirit kind of pushed people to start asking me if I was offering it publicly, which I had never considered. And so when I started getting all these questions, I started telling people, look, I will give you the reading, but I'm not going to charge you this exorbitant amount of money. And what I want to trade is, I want your feedback. I want your honesty. I want to know, like, what resonated, what didn't, so I can learn and then eventually grow into the confidence, and then being able to charge people what I thought it was valued at. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you said that.
I think as well, people are kinder when you admit that you're learning.
Yes.
I've seen psychic mediums place themselves as like the number one psychic, or the psychic to these people, or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, that's great that you have that confidence in yourself. I'm not knocking it, So for me, I'd rather treat it as a day to day. And some of those days I I've had to reschedule in the past because I'm just like, it's not there. I'm doubting myself too much. And if I'm doubting myself, how am I supposed to read for somebody else?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, it's all learning, and I always want to learn. That's the biggest
Yes.
green flag when somebody's not
Yes.
learning.
Exactly. Same. I love it. Oh, that's so good. So let's see here. One of the next questions that we have, which I feel like ties into everything we've been talking about, which is what does mental health work look like in the spiritual community? And yet another one that I feel like we could just like go on and on about.
Honestly, I want to hear your answer first because
Yeah.
of all the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm actually currently getting my master's in psychology, and I'm entering my second quarter on Tuesday. So I'm very excited to continue on. And for me, when it comes to mental health work in the spiritual community, I think that one of the things that I'm starting to see a little bit more, but I'd like to see more of, is discernment. And it's, yes, because there's this thing where like people will immediately jump to conclusions and immediately jump to things that they've heard or seen other people say without thinking for themselves. And I feel like this could be applied to a lot of things outside of spirituality as well right now, unfortunately. There isn't a lot of self thought and self creativity. And I feel like a lot of that comes from the inability to trust oneself, like what you were just saying. And so all of these things that I'm saying, they're all mental health. It's all mental health. Being able to sit and ask yourself, okay, why is this person saying this? Where is this coming from? If you're having like emotions or something come up, how do I feel about this? Do I agree with this? Does this resonate? All of these questions. And then sitting with the feelings, because sitting with the feelings, again, this is like where we have that intersection of psychology, mental health, and spirituality and psychic work. Being able to trust yourself and sit with the feelings instead of immediately jumping to a conclusion or an answer, but to sit with curiosity and be like, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. Let me sit, let me investigate. Because even in day to day, this is something I still am struggling with and working on, is sitting with the feelings and feeling the feelings. When we're able to do that, even in a spiritual psychic process, we open ourselves up to actually receiving and accepting. Because, for example, on like a psychological level, if we don't feel comfortable feeling anger, we suppress it. And then that anger builds and builds and builds and will leak out in other ways. So, for example, on the more like psychic realm of things, if we are, let's say, we are having a discomfort around a way that we are psychically receiving things, because for me this was something that I actually struggled with, was my clairaudience. I don't, not a fan of actually hearing things. It kind of creeps me out and I get like, ugh, ugh. Like I have ear things. I don't care for it. But being able to sit with the feeling, investigate, okay, why does this bother me? Why don't I like the sensation of this? Is there another way I can open myself to receive in other ways and let my spirit team know, hey, can we like communicate differently, because this is not making me feel comfortable, instead of just pushing it away, trying to lock it down, which is what I did when I was younger. So all of that all ties back to that core string of like mental health.
Yeah. Also, I hear you on clairaudience. That was definitely one of the ones for me that I was like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just like, I
Yeah, not sure about this one.
Though I've had some good experiences with clairaudience, and so that's definitely changed my perception of that. Yeah. Oh shoot, what was the thing? With discernment, spiritual psychosis can show up anywhere.
Mm,
It's not just psychics.
yes,
It's
yes,
also in religion.
yes.
It's also, I would say, within the religion of oneself. I'm all for people, have your own spiritual practice, et cetera, et cetera. I have seen people who whether consciously or subconsciously, worship themselves, and then they fall into delusion.
Yep. And this is actually really interesting because this last quarter, I actually was learning about the DSM, which is the diagnostic. I always forget the S. It's a diagnostic manual for psychology and for therapists. And in it, there is a diagnosis for exactly what we're talking about. But even in the DSM, it talks about there is a difference between someone who is having, like, let's say, a paranormal experience, let's say a ghostly encounter, who can see it for what it is, versus someone who's having a hallucination or delusion and cannot tell the difference between reality and what they're experiencing, to the point that it's blurring edges. And so I think that's also like really important, is to recognize that these things that we're discussing, there's always, it's kind of like what they say when there's a fine line between like new age spirituality and like fascism, where it's like there are some people who start to slip down that slope. And it's the same thing with like the mental health aspect of it, where some people start to get into, they spiral into this spiritual psychosis, and the lines get so blurred that they kind of lose themselves in it. And it's a very real thing.
Yeah, here's another red flag. Spirituality should not be the reason why you're special. It should be a part of what fuels the reason why you feel special. Because it gets into the, well, I can say what I want because I've heard this before, people being like, well, I'm a fey queen on the realm of the da-da-da in the this and that. And I'm like, cool, you still were not okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
yeah,
we're still living as our human incarnations, which meant some part of our soul somewhere came here to be human for whatever reason. And we need to honor that. It's not the existence somewhere else. Yes, we are meant to be representatives of that. But if we're sitting here being like, well, I'm, this God, so and I expect things to happen because I am that being, that, what are your hobbies? Like, when was the last time you had fun with friends?
Yes.
Like, did you all get together and you expected them to like make a ring of fire and like worship you? Like, what are you with your family?
Yes. We have come here to have a human experience. No matter what it is that we're doing, whether we are spiritual practitioners or psychics or witches, doesn't matter. Whatever you're here for, you're here for the physical human experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I got lost a little bit in the identity of Rebekah the Ghost Guide, because it got to me. I was like, am I only as good as the content that I can create or the reading that I can do for somebody else? And yes, it was still for learning, and I still get something from that. Though I really had this identity crisis like last year, where I was just like, am I only as good as as what somebody else can get from me?
Ooh, yeah.
And that's not a good space to be.
No, that's rough.
So I really spent a lot of this past year and then into this year, and I feel like I'm still in that exploration of reconnecting with who I am, rather than the boxes that I fit myself in, even though many of them are lovely boxes. They're very pretty. I put glitter on some of them, though I've asked myself harder questions, like, okay, here are all the things that people come to me for. And I'm not just talking about Rebekah the Ghost Guide. I'm talking about my life prior to 2020 and being a leader in theater and all of that identity. I was breaking that down as well. And I wrote out all the things that I felt like other people wanted from me. And then I started like reanalyzing that and be like, okay, well, what do I actually enjoy? Just because I'm good at something, does that mean that I'm supposed to be doing it? Or is part of my journey to say, yes, I can do that, though I don't really want to do that anymore? And I'll use stage management as an example in this. I got a lot of jobs stage managing for theater here at DC and elsewhere, Raleigh. And over time, I either would charge what I thought was an acceptable amount, but in the theater, living wage is questionable, um, especially in smaller markets. But
Oh yeah.
I I stopped accepting roles as a stage manager, even though they were coming down. People would regularly ask me, and I didn't even have to try. And I was just like, it's stressing me out. And just because I'm good at it, according to all these people, and thank you for seeing that in me, I was just sort of like, but is it worth the stress? Or
Yeah.
can I take those elements of what makes up stage management and put them into something that makes me feel like really alive? So
Mm-hmm.
it's all learning.
Yes, yes. And I love that you were talking about like the name of the title of Rebecca the Ghost Guide versus like who you are, because this actually ties so well into exactly what we're talking about, mental health within this field or anything. Because essentially what it sounds like to me is there's this idea, this theory, I believe it's by Jung, and it's the persona. It's who the mask that we wear when we're out in public. It's who we present ourselves to be. And there's this idea that one can become so over identified with one's persona that they start to actually lose themselves, which is ironic because it's like, but this is me. And it's like, oh, but if you pour too much into it, you lose all these facets because we're multifaceted beings. We are more than just the one. And this is actually something I struggled with too when I was an artist was I am the artist. I am the artist. And then when that I wasn't able to do that anymore, like everything crashed around me because I had become so over identified with that. So I love that you've kind of done that work of like being able to be like, oh, but there's so much more to me. And there's so many aspects of things that I like that aren't just this one thing that, even if people see this one version of me, I know that I'm so much deeper and I have so much more depth to me. So I love that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny you mentioned like all the steps and that kind of thing. And yes, though all I can think of is more recently is okay, who am I? I am that person parked literally down by the river and hand sewing while I'm listening to a great courses plus on ancient civilizations. Like
I
that is
love
who
it.
I am.
Yes,
Like right
yes.
now.
Amazing. So this kind of, I feel like, ties into this next question really well, which is someone had asked, how might one tell the difference between clairsenses and imagination?
Test it. Test it. You only can build a foundation if you start building the foundation. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we think clear senses are supposed to be out here. It's like the windows of the house already, but how do we get to the windows, right? We got to build up. Um, Testing can be scary because there's always that fear of what if I'm wrong. I would say, what if you're right? And two,
Mm-hmm.
what if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about being right or wrong? What if it was about learning? What if it was about
Yeah.
curiosity? What if it was
Yes.
about testing yourself to be like, well, how do I read? Like, do I get pictures in my head, or do I get like knowing somehow, or do I get goosebumps? Like, go to different places, take a moment to check in with you first,
Mm-hmm.
and then test it. I think haunted spots are a great place to test yourself because you can go in not knowing any of the history as much as possible, and then get your vibes, see what you see, feel what you feel, and then go test yourself
Mm-hmm.
by checking out the history, learning something, talking to somebody. It's not
Yes.
always that we're going to get this immediate validation. Oftentimes we don't, because that's not how life works.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go searching for what we want to find, and sometimes what we find isn't exactly what we thought it was,
Yeah.
but that's okay, because
Yeah.
I always think, if doctors can be wrong in how they prescribe things and how they
Mm-hmm.
diagnose, I, as a psychic, am allowed to be wrong from time to time, so
Mm-hmm.
long as I get to the right answer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And oh my God, that's something I could talk forever about is like this misunderstanding that psychics know it all and they're omniscient and but for me on this question, I feel like this goes back to like everything that you said, but also discernment. This goes back to knowing yourself and asking yourself questions, being able to know the difference between what does it feel like when I sit and imagine a scenario versus what does it feel like when I sit down and I try to contact my spirit team through a journeying session, and trying to notice the difference of how they feel physically in the body, how they feel emotionally, how they like what is coming up. But so like being mindful, bringing mindful awareness and asking yourself these questions with curiosity will help you to better understand yourself. Again, going back to mental health, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, so that way you can say, oh, I'm starting to realize that when I sit in imagination and play, it looks or feels more like this versus when I go to a haunted location or I'm contacting my spirit team and it looks or feels more like this. And sometimes there will be crossover, and that's not wrong. And I feel like people expect there to be a very definite, clear line between the two. And this comes back to that black or white, all or nothing dichotomous thinking that I was kind of talking about earlier, where it's like sometimes there's a little gray area. Because here's the thing, sometimes the other, whether that's spirits or your guides or divine, sometimes it uses your imagination to speak to you. So that's why I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding around this, because sometimes it is coming through in a more imaginative way, but it's like having a dream where you interpret the dream and you go, oh, I see what the message is now.
Allow yourself to be a beginner.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Like
exactly.
That's the way that you learn your language. I, for the longest time on my channel, I said that I was not a psychic medium because I was like, no, I don't want people to expect all the psychic medium stuff from me. And then when I finally came out as a psychic medium, I was just like, yeah, I guess that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it was still, and I think part of that was communicating to others, but it was also communicating to me and being like, hey, I reserve the right to be wrong because everybody's wrong some of the times. And the best I can do is admit that to myself, admit that I am new and that I am imperfect and that I'm doing my best.
Big green flag. Seriously, this is actually one of the things I talk about on the podcast episode, is when you have a psychic who's willing to admit that, yeah, I'm going to be wrong and I'm trying my best. I'm still learning. And even though I'm an expert here, yes, absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
I'll keep saying it. That will be the hill that I am on. Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to say I'm going to die on it, but I'll be the hill. I'll be on that hill.
I love it. And I feel like this actually ties into the question that we just answered as well, which is, do either of you wish to grow your abilities even further, and what would that look like?
Always.
Yes.
Like every time something kind of, it's not whack, but every time I have like a real, like an even more psychic experience than the last one, I'm always like, whoa,
yeah. I get the same way. I'm like, did that just happen? And it's like, wait, I do this professionally, but I still get excited,
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one in particular that I'm looking to grow. I mean, I'm always looking to grow self-trust, which has to do with claircognizance. Even though I consider that one of my strongest, it's not like I'm looking at a bar and being like, oh, once I pass it, I don't have to try anymore. I would say clairaudience, actually. Just because I first had to realize how much inner ear clairaudience experiences I was having, which was trippy unto itself. But then when I was like, oh, these conversations are actually kind of floating into me, like into my mind through my ears, that's clairaudience. Though one thing that I would like to work on more is actually being able to hear even more efficiently, to be able to pick up on languages that this brain does not conceptualize.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I have done is I treat it like charades. And this is not something that I guarantee that I can do in a consultation. Sometimes names, they come through, especially if they're
Mm-hmm.
in a language I recognize. Sometimes a guide will want very much to give me the name, and it's not in a language that I understand. Um, and then what I'll do is I'll be like, okay, say it again. And then I'll get syllables and I'll be like, okay, say it again. And then I might get consonants or like vowels or like the topography. Basically, I use my acting training to break down this word that my English brain doesn't know, and then gets into the weird part, which is say the weird thing
Yeah.
and just like mesh
Make
it
the
around
mouth
in my mouth.
sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, and then be like, okay, and then basically using claircognizance to check
Mm-hmm.
that, to be like, okay, was that right? No? Okay, was it on the second syllable? Okay, da-da-da. In my consultations, I made a video about this a while ago. One thing that I spoke, it was a single word in ancient Sumerian. It was
Whoa.
somebody's guide, and the word that I said, I don't remember what the word is now. The word that I said was daemon in
Mm-hmm.
ancient Sumerian. Now, I didn't know that, but I explained what a daemon was in Sumerian lore, and then I was just like, okay, look all this stuff up. And then the person in their follow up, they got back to me and they're like, hey, what you said meant daemon in ancient Sumerian.
Oh, that's so cool. I love when that happens.
Like
Oh,
that.
that's
I've had
amazing.
some German come through. I've had Spanish. And some other things that I'm still kind of deconstructing. But that's the thing. I want to get better at that. The thing is, though, it takes time. And typically in a
Yeah.
consultation, I don't want to fill up 10 minutes of me being like, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, you know?
Making all the weird mouth shapes and sounds, trying to, yeah, yeah. That's a really cool, I love that. That's a really cool goal to have.
Psychics should get into ancient languages more.
Yes.
That's
Oh my
why.
gosh. It's funny that you're talking about like picking up on different languages because I've actually had that happen before many years ago. There was one night where I was laying in bed and it sounded like there was a crowd of people talking. And I was trying to hone in and listen because I was still awake. And so this is that clairaudient thing that I used to like be like, no. But it sounded like a crowd of people like having a discussion. And when I like really honed in and tried to listen, I realized everybody was speaking Spanish. And I was like, why is everybody speaking Spanish? And then I was like, oh, wait, it's Dia de los Muertos. And then all the voices started cheering. And I realized it was my ancestors. And I just couldn't understand what any of them were saying. It was like they were all just hanging out. And I was just like, now I'm actually learning Spanish. So if it happens again, I'm prepared.
I love
But
that, though. They're like, you
yeah.
figured it
Yes, you figured it
out.
out. Yay. It was very sweet. It's like one of my favorite like ancestor stories that I have. But yeah, for me personally, when it comes to like what we were saying earlier, like we're forever students. Of course, we're always going to be wanting to develop and learn and grow and have different things to really like focus on. And I feel like for me, that's actually what I'm currently doing with like this MA in psychology, because one of the main things for me was as a medium, I noticed that I was not, I'm trying to find the words for this. I don't want to say I wasn't happy with myself. That sounds so negative, but I wanted to do better at being able to co-create space for people who were in grief. And I felt like I couldn't do that. I felt like, and so I've actually currently, I don't have mediumship offered on my website, even though it's something I can do. It's because I want to learn to be a better co-creator so I can actually sit with someone who is going through such grief. So that's kind of where I'm at, is that's something that I'm hoping to really gain while I'm on this journey as a becoming a therapist, is being able to do that better for people. So like obviously I'll be reading cards for people, and you know a past loved one will come in and then oops, now we're in a mediumship session, and that's fine. But I'm trying to develop that aspect more, and so I think that's a big thing for me, as well as this is a really personal and big one, which is not okay. Again, I'm trying to find the words. I'm trying to be better about validating myself and not needing the outside validation. Because as like wonderful as it is to be in a session with a client who can validate, oh my God, I know exactly what that is, or you hit the nail on the head, and that's really cool, and it feels like really awesome, especially like what you were talking about, where you talk to somebody later and they're like, hey, I can confirm what this was, did you realize? And you're like, whoa, I love that. But it's almost like it's almost a little sad, because I've noticed that I trust myself wholeheartedly 100,000% with everyone else when I give readings, but when I do anything for myself, I'm always like, well, there's no way to validate this somewhere. Like, I get really harsh on myself. So that's where I am on my personal like spiritual journey, is allowing myself to validate myself and being like, hey, maybe that does mean something to me personally, and that's okay if I don't have anybody here to be like, I know what that means. It doesn't have to, I'm not here to please anybody else, except, this is a personal practice, so that's where I am. It's mine is very, very therapeutic, I feel like, in the core of where I'm like kind of focusing my attention.
Okay, for both of those, which one, wow, such honesty, incredible. Such realness. Thank you. See,
Thank
we
you.
need that more spiritualist. The responsibility that you're talking about for yourself is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Because for your previous point, what the typical psychic and or medium is not is a grief counselor.
Yep.
Unless they have some background in counseling or psychology, they are not a grief counselor, and they are so often put into the position of being one.
Yes.
And that's like, I know some people, some psychics, they really love this because of the healing element, and they can really hold space for somebody. For me, why I took past loved ones off my reading options was because I knew my limits, and what people wanted was to be able to, sometimes it was the challenge of you need to have all the answers, and I was kind of like, okay. It's like you either believe or you don't, and it doesn't matter how I can tell you about like the mole on the side of their nose, and that it's like, well, you could have looked that up.
It's not
like,
enough.
I don't have time to do that.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
I'm out in my van hand sewing to a Great Courses Plus. Okay, like no. But I realized my limitations of empathetic listening when it came to person after person after person who was looking for proof of their person being okay. And I realized, like, even though I could do it, I did not have the training for it, and I did not feel like it was responsible for me to regularly put myself into that situation when I felt like I wasn't the help that they actually needed. I feel like a lot of people needed actual grief counseling.
It makes me so happy to hear you say that, because that is exactly what I was going through. And for me, I'm like, screw it, I want to go back to school. I have the ability to, which, like, I'm very privileged to be able to do so. And it's through circumstances that are way out of anybody's control. But it definitely is that blurred line that I feel like, again, we could go on and talk about this forever, of what people think psychics are or mediums are versus what they actually do. Because unfortunately, I feel like there is a lot of people who are trying to replace therapy with psychics. And these two things can go hand in hand absolutely beautifully, and they should. But when one replaces the other in totality, like even therapy, like, I don't think we should lean so hard into it that we disregard any spiritual practice that is personal, because then it's not the same kind of nourishment. It's two different things that can blend really beautifully. And so I think that ends up coming across a lot, like what you were saying and what I've experienced, which is people being like, well, now you're my grief counselor, well, now you're my therapist. And it's like, no. There have been times where in readings I tell people, if you have a therapist, if you can, please go talk to one.
A good therapist will not tell you you're insane for having experiences from the other side. And if they are, you can find a different therapist. that their
Thank you.
position is to actually mark real delusion and
Yes.
saying, hey, I know this is kind of, but I think I had this dream about so and so, and then I woke up and I thought I heard them say my name. That's not crazy.
Yep. So common. It's so
Yes,
common. Yep.
I'd say more common than not.
Yeah,
And I feel
absolutely.
like part of what people need is safe spaces and grounded spaces where they can speak about this. Which is why I'm so much about community, and I offer spaces like that where people can just be like, hey, this weird thing happened. Can I just, kind of talk about it a little bit?
Yes, exactly. Having the spiritual community, which is funny because I did another podcast episode about that like 2 months ago. Having spiritual community will help you not feel so isolated and like, oh, there's something wrong with me, But I know we're coming to the end here, and I feel like that's a whole other topic we could just like really get our claws into. It's so good. But as we wrap up here, I would love for you to share a little bit about your book that you have coming out. Like pre-orders are open, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm so excited for this.
This is the Not So Scary Guide to Ghosts. It is up for pre-sale anywhere that you can find stuff. I have a stink bug that managed to get into the van.
Oh no!
It's okay. I usually have my doors open. But anyway, I was just like, stink bug, why? Why would you do this to me? How did you get in? Anyway, anywho, so my book, very excited about it. I tell people I wrote this book for the person I was years ago who could not find a down-to-earth reference on how psychic mediumship can work with ghosts without being afraid and being confused and thinking that all of them were demons that needed to be sent on. So this, as I said, is available for pre-sale. It comes out in July. And I did see that there was an audio pre-sale as well. So if you're interested in that, please do that so that I can get rolling with that. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. This was beautifully manifested and was absolutely an answer to my dreams and so much that I had created. So yeah, this is my book. I'm so excited.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you. I'm excited for myself to read it. Like, I can't wait.
It's so friendly. Like this is just for promotion. I'm getting a hard copy soon, but
nice.
on the inside, it's colorful and it's friendly and it's got these cute, like, it's so cute. It is the cutest. I mean, look at this. It is the cutest ghost thing I have ever seen, and I love it.
I love it. It's going to be so good. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else that you want to promote while you're here? Anything going on and on your Patreon?
Yeah, Patreon's going. That's where my community is at. I always tell people, if you want to connect with me and connect with others like me, people who are drawn to me, that's going to be what Patreon's for. We have multiple calls throughout the month. Some are more structured for like spiritual growth. Some are courses. One is a workshop that's live with me. And then we also have fun calls. We have a social call every month where, goodness, last month we just stayed on talking for about 2 hours about all kinds of stuff.
Fun.
But yeah, that Patreon's where I'm at, and I'm truly grateful for all those folks, and I've met some wonderful friends there, and that's been the coolest thing for me. So what about yourself? I know about your podcast, but go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So I've mentioned it a couple of times, but for anybody who doesn't know, I have a podcast called The Oracle Parlor Podcast. Rebekah was on it if you haven't listened to it. There are still episodes coming out, not as frequently because I'm in school, but every month I try to drop at least one episode. I'm hoping to get back into doing interviews in the summer. So hopefully by the fall, there will be more interview episodes. So that's going on. And in the meantime, if you want more content that's like the podcast, but in shorter bites, you can join my Patreon for free. I do chit chats, and they're like 10 to 20-minute videos where I just talk about a topic. Usually it's something that I've been inspired by, either like a question someone has asked or I saw something on TikTok. And so I'll just kind of chat about that. But on my Patreon, I also offer monthly meditations. They're kind of like a mix between classes and meditations. So for example, the series that I'm getting into now is going to be a lot of energy work stuff. And the stuff that we just finished up was meeting your core guide and then asking for a different guide to come forward for very specific reasons. Like if you want help with discernment, with tarot reading, with things of that nature. And then I'm actually doing a website code discount for everybody who is here in the live. And this will actually be valid until next Friday. So even if you're watching this later, don't worry, you have until next Friday to use this code. So the code is in all caps, IG live with a space in between. So IG space LIVE, and you'll get 20% off any of the offerings that I have on my website. So if you're interested in booking with me, you can definitely do that and use that code. And I believe that's all I really have going on. So thank you so much, Rebekah. This was so much fun. We didn't get through all of the questions, but we'll definitely have to get together again. Thank you for putting that code in there. I appreciate that, Caitlin.
Yeah, Caitlin's one of my mods, always on it. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's an incredible offer. Could you put that in the description or like the comments of when this is saved so that way people can go back and do it?
Absolutely.
But yeah, for some of my patrons, I see you on here and thank you for joining. Jenny is also recommended as one of the fellow Patreons, people that you can recommend. So yeah, if you're looking for Fantasma Witch, Jenny is recommended. Also, I see Katie on here, also from 13 Days of Giveaways, also recommended on my Patreon.
Hi, Katie.
But yeah, awesome. I would love to do this again. And thank you for reaching out. Like, I was so excited to see your emails. Like, let's go.
Yes, it was so much fun. And it's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. It just feels like having a conversation with a friend where it's like, I know we're going to vibe on everything, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it. So it's always like yes. every topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this. I love this so much. Well, cool. Thank you again. And we'll talk later about when we go live again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.